Hello, welcome to Fix It Finance. Hi. Do you want to request to join? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fix It Finance. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just gonna add on our guest today. Oh, I'm excited. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, you look so lovely. Wow. Awesome. How are you doing? I
Good. How are
feel
you?
like that dress now.
No, there's nothing.
How are you? How are you?
I'm good. How are you too?
I'm all right. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
everybody, for joining us. Our guest today is Mo of Mo Events, looking like a snack. Oh my goodness. We
Oh
have
my
a good
goodness.
one. We have a good one for you today. So we're going to be talking about planning and budgeting for your wedding. So if you are, getting married, or you've gotten married, or you know someone who's getting married, or your children are getting married, this will be a great session for you to learn a few things. Some of the things we're also going to be focusing on for those in our midst that are single and those in our midst that are looking to walk down the aisle is some of those conversations you can have with your intending or your intended, the person you're going to marry, in terms of the kind of conversations to have before you get married or you walk down the aisle. So, for those of you that are new, this is Fix It Finance, where we talk about all things finance. One of our goals / vision is to see Canadians from every walk of life, become debt free. So, um, I guess I'll pass it on to Mo to introduce herself, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Fikayo. Like you said, my name is Mo or Dupe, depending on who is asking. A lot of people just assume because it's Mo events that it's Mo, which is not incorrect. So my name is Mo or Dupe, depending on who you're talking to. I started my wedding planning business, I believe, the summer of 2016. I
Mm-hmm.
officially started my wedding planning business. I can't believe it's going on the fifth year now. Um,
Already.
I started my wedding planning business the summer of 2016, and Fikayo and Kenny were my first couple. Um, they were my first couple that, when I started my business. So I have a very soft spot for them. So when she was like, come on and do a life, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Those who know me, I'm so much of a behind the scenes person. I like to, and I think that's why wedding planning kind of works for me because I get to make things happen at the back, behind the scene, and I don't have to be out there and all of that. So, yeah, so that's a little bit of, I don't know if I covered who I
You
am.
did, you
I'm
did.
I'm a wife and a mom of two boys, and I have a HR background, and I think that also helps me with my wedding planning because just being able to interact with all different types of people, with different personalities and, people coming from different walks of life and all of that. So yeah, so that's a little bit of, introduction, I guess.
Yeah. So I
I
guess to
hope
give you
that
guys some
covers.
to give you guys some further background, I remember when I was in undergrad, actually, as Dupe was the first person who taught me how to budget. So I walked up to her. I was all upset because like my money just was not, it wasn't corresponding. And then I went to her house. I used to go to her house all the time, and she sat me down and she showed me how to budget paper and pen. We've upgraded now. We're using app, but she showed me actually how to budget. So I'm really excited for some of the tips she has for us today. Because she's not just a wedding planner, like she said, she's a wife and a mom, so she gets it. So I'm hoping, if you guys have any questions as we talk on anything she mentions, please put it down in the comments, and then we'll go from there. So just so, because of time, so we can get as much as possible out of this hour. I guess we'll shoot right into it. So, what's the plan? How does it work when you're talking to couples about wedding planning and budgeting? Like, where do you come in as a wedding planner? How do you help in that process?
So I think I would kind of I won't start off with where I come in as a wedding
Mm,
planner. I think I'll
okay.
start off with, just generally what when you decide you want to get married, you
Mm,
know, budgeting plays into it. I'm no financial expert in any way. I'm just going to give you a little bit of tips, and I'm just going to talk to you based on the experiences that I've had, all the weddings and other social events that I've planned and coordinated. So just based on off of all of that, and just based on the experience that I have. So, traditionally, we are in proposal season. This is
mm,
engagement season. Everybody, Christmas Day is the most popular day for proposals and engagements. And
okay.
so we are in that season right now. And so there's a lot of people who are planning to or have already proposed or are planning to. So once the next step is planning. So once you're done the proposal, then you start thinking about planning the wedding, which is the next step. But before you get to that point, I think it's really important for you to sit down and have the financial talk, the money talk, the financial conversation, right? So first things first, where are you at with your finances is the first
Mm,
thing. I'm hoping that if you're getting to the point where you're proposing or you're deciding to be engaged, you've had some form of financial conversations. But if you haven't, then that's, at that point, you want to talk about where are we at? So
mm,
what is your financial status? What is your net worth? What do you have in terms of debt?
mm,
Are are we starting off with some student loans, or, you have some large credit card debt or something like that? So that's the first step. Where are we at? Just knowing the numbers. So then once you figure out where you're at in terms of, the figures, then you're thinking, okay, what are we able to put aside for this wedding? So are we able to save some money for this wedding, or do we already have something saved for this
mm.
wedding?
Yeah.
You have because some people are already saving for their wedding even before they get proposed to, but
Yes.
other people are not. But so if you're already saving for it, then you can say, okay, I have this X amount saved already for the wedding, and so what are we going to put aside is a
Mm,
conversation to have. Then you have to determine how much do we really want to spend for this wedding. And
yes.
I find that a lot of people are clueless as to
Mm-hmm.
how much a wedding costs. And so, in your head, you might figure, okay, we want to spend this much on the wedding. But in reality, it might not work. It might not work out that way because weddings are expensive more often than not. Weddings are a huge expense. And so
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about how much you want to spend on the wedding as well. And then, also, while talking about how much you want to spend, you also want to think about when all of this is over, are we going to be debt free? Or
Mm.
are we to spend the first year of our wedding
Paying
paying
off.
off debt? So, those are the conversations to have first.
Mm,
And so
mm,
once you've had those conversations, then you can start thinking about, okay, how do we want to move forward with planning this wedding? And that's
mm,
where the wedding planner comes in. I
mm.
always tell people that a wedding planner is not a luxury for wedding planning, especially in
Okay.
this part of
Yes.
the world. It
Mm,
is not a luxury. It is a necessity because
yeah.
wedding planners come with a lot of wealth of knowledge. They have a network of other event professionals that they work with.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, the money you're paying your wedding planner, you already make save like the discounts you're getting from other vendors because you came to them through a wedding planner already
Mm,
pays for that wedding planner. So,
easily.
so say you go to the DJ and the
Mm,
DJ is going to ask you to pay 1,800, for a service, and that's you just going directly to your DJ. But if I, as a wedding planner, goes to the DJ and says, "Oh, by the way, I have a client. We're considering using your service. You
Mm,
know, what's that going to be?" The DJ will give me a vendor pricing. So,
mhm.
you might be spending 1,800 if you went by yourself.
Yeah,
If you went with your planner, you might be getting that for 1,200. So
yeah,
that's one vendor, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you go over and over and over. So at the end of the day, the discounts you're getting because you have a vendor, it's already pays for your wedding planner.
for sure,
So
for sure.
I believe that a wedding planner is a necessity when you're planning, especially in this part of the world.
Mm,
Um, Average wedding takes 250 to 300 hours
mm,
to plan. And a lot of us are, working professionals, and you don't have that kind of time. And, you don't want to spend all of your time researching when somebody already has all of those research done. They
yeah,
already know, like, okay, this is your budget, so these are the vendors that I can refer you to within
mm,
this budget, instead
mm,
of you doing all of that legwork by yourself. So,
yeah,
essentially, I think the first step after you've had that money talk
mm,
is to consider hiring a wedding planner. And
mm,
you don't have to hire a wedding planner to plan your wedding. You don't have to hire them to plan the whole wedding. If you feel like you're good with organizing and putting things together, you can, hire a planner to just make sure that to take it all off of you the month before your wedding. Or
mm,
you can start off, do a few things and decide, you know what, let's the wedding planner take over from here.
yeah,
So you necessarily don't have to use a wedding planner for the full planning, which is the best, but you don't have to if you don't want to. You can essentially,
I lost.
or
Oh,
you can go shell wedding planning where you started planning and then the wedding planner takes over from there. So there's different options here and there. And
yeah,
so that's in terms of the next steps after the proposal, right?
mm,
So talking about budgeting for the wedding. Um, an average wedding
mm.
here in Canada costs, on the average, you'll be spending between $250 to $400 per person. So
Woo!
if you wanted to, yeah, so
Holy!
So if you wanted to have a wedding for 120 guests, we
Yeah.
hear that on the average you are going to be spending, it will cost you about $30,000 for 120
Mm.
guests. So
Woo!
then when we come to the Africans, Africans love to party. We love to do the big weddings,
Yeah, yeah,
the 400 guests, 500 guest weddings. Then you multiply that by that, and that's kind of where you're going to be sitting at. So before
mm.
you start thinking of having a 500 guest wedding,
Think
think
well.
about what it's going to cost you. And
Mm,
that's on the average, right? So
yeah,
you can decide to go way above that. You can, it'll
less.
be tight to go below that because just considering all of the moving pieces of a
Yeah.
wedding. And so on the average, I think you're going to be spending that much for a wedding.
So, so I guess to kind of interject here, just that's the average, yes, and that's assuming the couple is paying for everything. Because I know in some weddings you might have help from like parents or friends or whatnot. So for those that are listening, that's assuming you're the one handling everything. And just for the record, it's safe to assume, just assume you're the one paying for everything. Don't assume anybody's helping you pay for it, because that will help you plan better. But one of the things you said that I really liked about, the conversations beforehand, I remember listening to this message by, I think, Juanita Bynum. And one of the things she said in that message, it convicted me so much when I was younger. She was like, "What are you bringing to the table besides
Yeah.
eyeliner and lipstick?" And I was just like, wow. What a
Yeah.
line. So ever since I was young, that line convicted me so much. I remember one of the things I used to say was one of my goals, I don't want to take anything like that into marriage. I want to bring assets into my marriage. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just something to think about, like what are you bringing to the table beyond six pack and long hair? Just saying, no
You
judgment,
know,
just
right?
so
Yeah,
you
just
know.
say.
And like you rightly said something about, one of the ways a wedding planner can actually help you. I know for us, for our wedding, one of the things that you really helped us with, because I was doing there's some of us, we like organizing and we think we're great at it. And then we went to the vendors directly, but the same vendor that we spoke to, by the time you spoke to them, the price was very different. So just for everyone listening, that's another way that a wedding planner actually helps you save money. So think of a wedding planner as more of a he or she is an asset to the wedding more than anything, because just from the savings you get with negotiating with and then negotiating for some people doesn't come easy. When they say the price is 1,800, you feel bad asking for less or whatnot, but your wedding planner has no sentiment involved. So those are some of the benefits of having one. So yeah, I think we're about to go into budgeting for the wedding. So
Yeah,
yeah, do
yeah.
you, as wedding planners, do they actually help with, I know you helped us with the budget, but like, just for those that are listening, how does that work?
So essentially, the first thing we do when when we take on a client is, budget. Budget is
Mm,
usually the first thing. So when I do an initial consultation, the first thing I ask the couple is, what's your budget for your wedding?
mm,
And 90% of the time, they're like, we're not sure, we're just thinking between this and this. And I'm like, okay, so can you tell me what you want, what the kind of feel you're going for your wedding?
yeah.
What kind of, ambience are you going for? What kind of wedding do you want? And then, I get all this description, all this amazing
Grand.
grand. So like I always say, people wanting champagne on a Zobo budget, going over and wanting, and then, essentially, and the thing is, it's because a lot of times people don't know any better,
Sorry,
right?
can you say that one more time?
It's because people don't know any better, right?
Oh
Because
my
they're
goodness.
thinking, okay, how much is it? What should it shouldn't cost
No,
much,
no,
to
what you
get
said
married.
before. What you said
What did
before.
I say before?
Champagne on a Zobo budget.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that
essentially.
before.
No, but it's the truth because people come into wedding planning with, oh my God, it shouldn't cost much. Is it not just we need an officiant, a DJ, this and that, and they go over, they list out all of these vendors and they feel like, okay, it shouldn't cost much. So like 90% of the people I speak with, initial consultations, they have no clue about what a wedding costs,
Mm,
right? And so in terms of budgeting for a wedding, that's the first step, you know.
mm.
Mortgage is
Damn
my
it.
darling. Yeah, we all want champagne on its over budget. I'm telling you. And there's a way that there's so many ways that you can save or you can cut down on cost for your
Mm,
wedding. But a
mm,
lot of times, you might not come to you because this is not something you do every day.
mm,
Another advantage of hiring a planner,
mm,
because there's so many ways you can manage cost. You can come down on cost. And so when I meet with somebody who wants to have a grand wedding or describe their wedding, and I know that this wedding is going to cost them 50 grand,
mm.
and they are telling me their wedding budget is 25,000. Now
Hallelujah.
I'm starting off the conversation with, okay, just describe to me what you want in this wedding. And they describe all of it. And then
Mm,
I send them, I show them a sample of what they described, what it will cost, a breakdown in numbers. So I don't just say, oh no, it's not going to work. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'll send you a breakdown. So
mm,
if you wanted to do this, you wanted a limo, you want to do this, you want to do this cocktail hour, you want to do this is what each of these items cost. And then at the end of the day, they can see the figures. They
mm.
can see that realistically, it's not going to, 25 grand is not going to cut it.
At
Now
all.
it's their turn to decide, do I want to add a little bit more, or do I want to go down on, what I want? Do I want to kind
Mhm.
of manage my expenses the way with what I can? And I always tell my couples, don't ever do more than yourself. Like,
Yeah,
don't don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
for sure.
Have a wedding that you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the greatest tips I can give for having a wedding you can afford is just starting early.
Mm.
Start
Mm-hmm.
planning early. So you get proposed to December this year. You guys decide that, we want to have our wedding September of 2021.
Mm.
Start now. Don't wait
April.
until April and say, okay, we're not sure what's going on. Let's just wait. Don't wait. Start early. And the
Mm.
reason I say start early is because a lot of times with wedding vendors, you're not required to pay immediately. Like you're not
Yeah.
required to pay everything at once.
Yeah.
It's most wedding vendors, there's an option of a payment plan. So
Mm.
you're either paying 30% upfront and then another 30% along the way, and then the balance, or you're
Mm.
even with for like a full wedding planning. I have never had a client who paid their full wedding planning upfront.
Yes.
Full wedding planning, they start off with an initial payment. And then whatever the balance is, we always have a payment plan. So you're paying a certain amount, the same amount every month. You won't even feel it.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just the same amount every month until the wedding. And so we
Mm-hmm.
break it down, whatever is left, and spread it over the number of months. So
Mm.
if you reach out in January and say, I want to get married in April of 2022, you literally have over a year to make that payment. And
Mm-hmm.
then with all of the different vendors, you have you have a longer period to it. But, if you can afford to, put down
Pay up
chunks of
first.
money, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is going to say no to that as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
the first tip is start early.
Yeah.
Start early, start planning early, put money aside,
Mm-hmm.
decide on how much you want to put aside every month. You
Yeah.
know, like I said, weddings can be really expensive depending on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Weddings, I say, is almost like an investment because it's one of the, biggest expenses you will make in your lifetime.
Mm.
Weddings cost a lot. And so if we say we look at a little bit of budget breakdown for weddings, when you're planning a wedding, the reception takes 45 to 50% of the wedding budget. And that's things that includes like the food, the cake, the alcohol, staffing,
So basically,
venue,
if you don't have the
rehearsals
reception, you can pay. You can literally knock off 50%
of the
of
yeah
your wedding.
of your wedding, because
Uh-huh.
that's the biggest chunk of it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
True.
chunk is the reception, right? So but if you don't, like you said, if you don't have a reception, like COVID has kind of
Mm.
helped a lot of people in that way. You don't
Save.
have a reception, you're saving that much,
Yeah.
So if you're doing a budget allocation breakdown for weddings, typically 45 to 50% goes into the reception. The next thing that takes a huge chunk of your money is the flowers and the decor.
Mm.
So flowers and decor takes 7 to 15% of
Mm.
your wedding budget as well.
Mm.
And then if we start moving on to the pictures, videos, that's another 10 to 15% of your wedding budget.
Mm.
You talk the outfits, so the attire for the bride and the groom, that's another 10 to 15% of your wedding budget. And then everything else, music and entertainment is another 8 to 12% of your wedding budget. And then you start the smaller percentages coming, things like transportation, 2 to 3%,
Mm.
ceremony, same 2 to 3%,
Mm.
stationery, 2 to 5%, gifts and stuff like that. So the chunk of the wedding is the reception.
Mm.
And that's why it's easier to look at the wedding cost based on, per person. It
Mm.
gives you perspective. When people come to me and their budget doesn't fit what they typically want to have for their
Yeah.
wedding, the first thing I ask them is, can you cut down your guest list?
Mm.
Because that's the first place you can have savings
Huge
for your
savings.
wedding, is cutting down your guest list.
Mm.
So if you're hoping to have a 400 guest wedding, but you know that the budget you have is not what you want to spend for your wedding without going into debt, is not going to cut it for 400, then the first thing is to start rethinking that number. You know,
Mm.
do I want to, who can we take out of the guest list? And
Mm.
COVID has made things a little bit, has made us see things in different
Oh yeah.
perspectives now.
Oh yeah.
Now people do weddings and they have the Zoom on. So the people that are not attending physically, they can see
Mm.
they can see the wedding. They're not there physically, they're not present, but they can see
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
and I think going forward, we'll probably still have people joining weddings on Zoom, even after the pandemic is over.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's the first place you can save on your wedding, is
Mm.
cutting down on the guest list. Being
Yeah.
realistic about it. You want to invite everybody. Yeah, we understand. Oh,
Mm.
this person did this for me when I was doing that. This person is this person is that. You have so many reasons why you want to invite people, but then at the end of the day, you have to think, do I want to go into debt because I am getting married?
Mm.
And if it's important for you not to go into debt, then you have to look at, the different ways where you can manage cost. And the
Yeah.
first thing, like I said, is cutting down the guest list.
Yeah. So
Um, yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I like how you broke down the different things like the reception, in terms of percentages and whatnot. Because I remember when you were working with us, one of the things that, because I remember there was one venue we wanted to book that was like $15,000, and you were like, Auntie, what was your budget again?
Yeah.
you know,
You see, and that's
but
the thing. You can do a lot with any, I think you can transform any space. Right.
you can, and
You can
that was where
transform
I was
any
trying to
space.
get to.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
like
Go ahead.
you don't have, I think for us, one of the things, what like in terms of the conversation, remember how we were talking about, make sure you have conversation like between the guy and the girl, the person who wants to get married, between the two people that are
Yeah.
getting married,
Yeah.
have a lot of conversations. Because when we sat down and we rethought everything, I know Kenny and I, we were like, okay, what are the most important things to us about this wedding? Like we
Yeah.
chose the aspects that were very, like, for example, the outfits were important to us, so
Yeah.
we didn't mind spending in that regard. The
Yeah.
venue, not so much,
Yeah.
and then of course the experience. We wanted people to have a great time, like we wanted it to be a great party, so the DJ was important to us,
I
so
remember.
we picked and we chose. Some people are shaking their head here, but we picked and we chose the items that were important to the two of us, and
Yeah.
then we ended up splurging or spending there. So for some
Mhm.
people, yours could be the fact that you want a grand venue. Just pick
Mhm.
and choose, but that means you may need to give up, spending in another category. For example, I don't know, maybe
Exactly.
entertainment or whatnot. So as you said, how that there is, there are important aspects to, like, reducing your guest list could help you save money. There are also other ways, like you're kind of talking
Oh,
about, just
oh
picking
yeah.
and choosing what's important to you, like you said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So,
guess
oh, go ahead.
we have a question. So I don't know. Can you see the question?
I think I kind of saw it. Somebody
Um.
was talking about can why
Oh,
can't tickets be sold for weddings? Well, I don't know. Maybe it'll be the in thing soon, but for now,
just like you sell tickets for a
yeah.
concert, right? I'm guessing that's what Dami is trying to say.
Yeah.
It
So,
depends. I mean, if
and
you think you have that kind of pull, like you can sell tickets to your wedding, because no offense, at an average of $250 a person, I can see people in the future selling tickets to their wedding. Like, if you want to come, just go to Ticketmaster and purchase. But
well,
yeah. Oh my
yeah. So
goodness.
just like Fikayo said, conversations are really important.
Mm,
Talking about um having those conversations about what is important to both of you.
Mm,
So I have had clients who say, my guest list is it. Every single person on this list is
mm,
important to me, and I
mm.
want them at my wedding. And if that means having to wait a little longer to have the wedding, then that's okay by me.
Yeah,
So having those conversations are really important because you want
exactly.
to, you want that day, it's your wedding day. It should be about the two of you. It should
Mm-hmm.
be a day that you guys can look back and be like, yeah, we had a good wedding, right?
Yeah.
We had, an awesome day. And so having those conversations, figuring out what is important to you, what do you want to spend money on? And then you talked about the venues, and that's another thing. Depending on the venue you want to go with, there's a wide range of venues. Some people come to me and the first conversation we're having is that, I'm not even going to consider a community hall. I want to go to a hotel, I want a banquet hall, and all of that, and all of that. These things come with a price tag, right? You want a banquet hall in a hotel, and you are not willing, you don't have the budget for it, then you might as well, wait, or, I don't know, because
Change your mind.
when you're having a wedding in a hotel, you are going to pay for the space. More often than not, sometimes they waive the room rental for you, depending on how many guests and if you reach a certain food and beverage limit.
Mm,
Minimum, and then you have to use the food at the hotel. So for a lot of the African weddings, that cuts out your jollof and
mm.
your puff puff
Wedding
and stuff
without
like that.
jollof.
Yeah,
Mm,
and so so things like that, and then the cost that comes with it, they're going to have to get liquor from them as well, and all of this kind of stuff. It adds up, right? And there's a wide range of venues
mm.
that you can transform any space, and
Yeah.
that's the truth.
Yeah.
COVID has even taught us that you can even we knew before we could transform any space, but COVID has even made it a lot. We can transform any space at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, considering the venue as well is where you can save money. Instead of going for a venue that will cost you maybe 15,000, like we went to look at so many years ago, you can choose to go with a venue that is cost you less. There are some really great community halls that have been recently renovated. You
True.
can drape the whole room, and it doesn't even look like
Like,
nobody will even know what is in the shell. They
mm,
just you can drip everywhere and then build on that. And
mm,
so at the end of the day, yeah, the address on the invitation says it's a community hall, but then people go in and they can't even believe they're in a community hall. So
yeah.
you can have savings in so many ways. You can, manage costs that way.
Mm,
Another way you can manage the cost of a wedding is having a weekday wedding. So, a lot of venues, Saturday is prime, all venues, Saturday is prime time.
yeah.
Vendor, Saturday is prime day. So why not have your wedding on a Sunday? Why not have it on a Friday or a
Mm.
Thursday? Those days are off. They're not
Yeah, peak times. Yeah.
and a lot of venues, they have reduced rates for those days. You save that way,
Mm.
And even doing your wedding on a day that is not Saturday also will help you cut down the guest list as well. Because
Yep.
there are some people, they will tell you that, um, Thursday, I'm sorry, I can't take 2 days off work. Man,
Mm.
that's one person out or two people out, right?
You just
So
saved $250.
yeah, so you can choose to do a weekday, or you can also choose to have your wedding at an off-peak season. So
Mm.
here in Canada, peak season for weddings wedding peak seasons is usually we're looking at April to September.
Mm.
That typical peak season. And so
Mm.
you can decide to have your wedding outside of those months. Usually,
Oktoberfest.
usually a lot of venues have like off-peak pricing. So
Mm.
if your wedding is, from, in in April or March, you might get a lower, will cost you a little bit less, right? Then then you start talking about having the time of the wedding. So
Mm,
we all love a party, right? We all love to party. Majority of us love to party, right?
yeah.
So we want to have that, wedding, go to the reception, and then have dinner and all of that. But you could consider having a brunch wedding. It
Mm,
will cost you way less,
yeah.
way less than what you will spend for a wedding that has all the works. So that's another way that you can save. Then, with multicultural weddings, which
Mm,
are typically multi-day weddings,
yeah.
you think you can have it on the same day, which is what you guys did,
We
right?
yeah, we had three
Yeah.
ceremonies in one
So
day
we
and it
had the
was
three
perfect.
events on the same day.
Yeah.
And so, you can go down that route. It saved us a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
because in the morning for the traditional ceremony, we didn't have to, go and provide everybody with jollof rice and, you
At
know,
9 o'clock in the
and
morning.
anything at 9 a.m. in the morning, So it cost us way less
Mm,
in the
yeah.
morning. It wasn't I know there's some people on the platform that were at Fikayo's wedding. You know that we didn't just ask you guys to come in and then leave. There was food to eat. It just wasn't jollof.
Or
And it cost
amala.
us,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it cost us way less,
Yeah.
having all the events the same day. And it's
Yeah.
doing and you might say, oh, Fikayo's wedding was, in 2017. That's a long time ago. I had a wedding last summer as well. That was all three events the same day. It was a multicultural wedding as well.
Mm,
And it's still the same thing. We saved money on, you know, on food, on so many things by
yeah.
having all three events the same day. So that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Another way you can save money is host versus cashback. So,
Mm,
you want to, you can, I know that with us, with a lot of Africans, culturally, you don't want to ask people to pay anything for your wedding.
mm, yeah.
When, for instance, like this kitchen was saying that, why don't you, what was talking
Sell
about
tickets.
whatever. It's a cultural thing. We don't want
Yeah,
to ask people to pay. So,
that's
but
true.
then
That's true.
if you're looking for ways to kind of manage in terms of the cost, and you're going to sell alcohol, you can consider having a cash bar instead of a
Mm,
host. You can ask people to pay a toonie for their drinks.
mm,
And that way you're just paying the difference. So yeah, not the drinks, the alcoholic drinks on the average, it's between $5 to $9 a glass. And so
mm,
if they're paying a tooling, then the couple is paying the balance, right? So you're not
yeah,
really not paying, it's not like they're paying, or you can ask them to even pay for their drinks.
that's true.
'Cause, I know it's a cultural thing. It might not sit well with
Yeah.
some people,
But
but it's doable.
I think the biggest thing is people understanding that there is no hard and fast rule. You guys just have to determine what's best for you and your family slash your audience. There's no you must do this or you have to do that or you cannot do this or you cannot do that.
Yeah.
It's a flexible process, and of course working with the wedding planner helps, in various ways, but like
Mhm.
understanding that there's no you have to make sure you do what's best for you so that at the end of the wedding, at the end of the day, you're not starting your marriage off in the negative. At least
Yeah.
a huge, if you have student loans, you have other things, sure, but do not add wedding debts to it in the name
To
of,
it,
oh,
yeah.
we have to do this or we cannot do that. There's a good question here that says, from the budding bloom, it says, how about decoration? Will that change if both are done on the same day slash same place? So you know how we were talking about three weddings in one day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
what was the question? Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can find the question.
if you it's right there. It says, how
Oh,
about,
okay, okay,
can you see it?
okay,
Awesome.
okay. So I always want to repurpose, right? So we use an arc for the ceremony. Instead of doing another backdrop in the reception, why don't we move that arc into the reception room and use it as a backdrop for the couple? Or, we can even use it as a backdrop for the cake. So you can save that way as well. If you have it at the same venue, at the same place, definitely you would
Mm.
you can make some savings that way. Just flipping things over, right?
Yeah.
We use the same chairs, the rental chairs. We use the same chairs for the ceremony, and right after the ceremony, we flip it into the reception. So yeah, you can definitely save that way as well
Yeah, and
when
I
it
think
comes to
from
your
what we ended up doing, like what you ended up planning for us, it was three different locations, same decorator, I think. And,
Yes.
the person already had like different, each one was already set up the way. So all we had to do was transfer to the next place.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's repurposing, and there's also, working out a good deal with with the decorator, whereby each location has their own, and you just call it a day in one good package. Yeah. Okay. So I guess the next thing would be what's the best advice you usually give couples, or what's okay, two questions.
Okay.
One is, what's the best advice you would give couples that are, intending, because like you said, there are, Christmas season is when a lot of people get engaged. Christmas stroke New Year is when a lot of
Mhm,
people get engaged. So like
mhm.
like you already mentioned, start early. Start like as soon as you get engaged, please pick a date and just start planning. I know there's COVID and whatnot, but like you rightly said, some of the COVID ways we've been doing weddings may not even end, because now that people know they have the option of, just putting it on Zoom, you can have 100 guests, 120 guests, and everybody else and their auntie can watch it on Zoom,
On
you know?
Zoom,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what's the worst thing you find that couples are doing in the wedding planning process, that if you were to advise them, I know your jurisdiction may not be too as the wedding planner, but if you were to give an advice to couples, what would that be? And yeah, what's the worst thing that they usually do? They're just like, "Ha, you shouldn't do this," but sure.
So I think for me, one of the things is when we're talking about wedding planning and we're looking at it, we're looking at budgeting and the financial side of things, which is what we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about today. I think the first thing is essentially this figuring out where the money for that wedding is coming from.
Mm,
So I always tell people, you might have a family that you feel they're going to help you with the wedding. They're going to help you with some of the cost,
ah,
but plan your wedding with
like you're
what
the
you
one
know
paying
that,
for it.
yeah, what you know that you and your fiancé can afford. And then
Mm,
if help comes along the way, if somebody wants to gift you guys, pay for the entertainment or whatever, that's an added plus. You
yeah.
can now decide the money you have for entertainment. You can decide now that, okay, let's use it to do some, customization, for the wedding,
Mm.
or move go a little more higher end in
Or
certain
buy
areas,
a better honeymoon.
or buy a better honeymoon. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Hashti, yeah, budgeting is always the hardest part. So the thing is, at the end of the day, plan your wedding like you are the one, like, don't depend on anybody to fund your wedding. If
Yeah.
you get that help, don't start planning with, okay, my mom is going to, contribute 20,000
20,000.
wedding
Mm.
without even, having that conversation with your mom yet. Just
Yeah.
assuming that your mom
Yeah.
is going to contribute to the wedding. So I'll
Yeah.
say, the first thing is plan your wedding based on what you can afford.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, if you get help, that's all good and fine.
Sure.
And if
Mm.
you don't, then you're still not in
Sure.
the red, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, just plan like you are paying for your wedding. What you
Mm.
can afford, do you. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to be bound by anybody's rules or anything, right?
The other thing is, to add to what you're saying, and I think that advice is actually fantastic, because you can't assume that someone is gonna help pay for your wedding. But even if you're of that assumption, like a lot of people, like, some parents do want to help, but life circumstances could have changed by the time
Yeah.
you're getting married, and they can't do as much as they would love to do. You know,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
remember, I remember, I don't know if you watch Friends, but Monica, when she was getting married, because she ended up getting married later than her parents expected, they had taken the money they saved for her wedding and they used it to add an addition to their house or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah,
So I'm just saying, you need to understand that your parents' money, it's their money. So even if they wanted to give you, they have to decide to give you. So plan your wedding like it is you and whoever you're marrying that is going to pay for it. So even if you do get money from family, friends, or whatnot, you can then repurpose it, like, Mo is saying, or save it, use it to pay off some debt, that you're bringing into the marriage. But we have a comment here which I think is really good from Manifest Hub. She says, and I think individuals could start saving for their wedding now, even if you're single. It may be a little unorthodox, but we save for our education and other things. So why not on a wedding? I actually don't think it's unorthodox at all. I
I
think
think
it's a
we even
great idea.
mentioned that already, right?
Yeah,
Earlier on.
yeah,
Yeah. Save for your wedding, start
yeah.
saving for it. It just takes the burden. It just,
Yes.
reduces that burden off of you when the time actually comes. If you're going to spend 50 grand on a wedding and you already have 20 saved, then, you're only looking to make up 30. If you are
Exactly.
going, so it's almost a no-brainer to
Yeah,
save for your
yeah.
wedding,
Like I
just
was
like you
saying,
save for your education.
like we were saying at the beginning, what are you bringing to the table for the marriage besides eyeliner
Yeah,
and lipstick and six pack?
yeah.
Do you understand? Other things for life. Bring something tangible to the table.
you know and sometimes you have family member who provides a service, and because they're your family member, you really want them
Sentiment.
to be, you have that, my uncle is a baker. He bakes for weddings. I want him to bake my wedding cake. It's fine, but you see, usually when you start involving family
Mm.
and in being part of uh, your event team, your vendor team for your wedding, it can get a little tricky, but it
Yes.
can also work. So if you do have a planner, you make sure that person, you're not having the conversation with that person.
Mm.
That person and the planner are the ones having that conversation, so they
Mm.
are treating that person like any of the other event
Any other
professionals that are
customer?
working
Yeah.
at that wedding. And
Mm.
so they're not, you don't want them thinking they're doing you a favor. They are doing you a favor,
Yes.
but at the
Yes.
same time, you have to approach it that way. And if you don't have a planner, you have somebody who is coordinating your wedding, make sure that, that person is liaising with this uncle that is baking the cake and making sure that your cake arrives at the time that it's supposed to arrive. You don't
Mm.
want us starting the reception and the cake is missing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I see a lot of people when they are trying to cut costs. They were like, oh, I have a cousin that does this, I have this, that. There's other ways you can save for your wedding,
Mm.
instead of getting into, that tricky family waters.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like you're rightly saying, I think the word that comes to mind is boundaries. There have to be clear cut boundaries. Clear cut
Yeah.
boundaries. Even if it's your uncle that's baking, nothing wrong with your uncle baking. Is he going to require payments? If he's not going to require payments and he wants to do it for free, make sure there's clear boundaries. Uncle, we need it by 8 on Tuesday. There's no sentiment involved, because you know what I mean.
Hmm.
And again,
Yeah.
it comes with communication. So speaking, that's my next question slash next
Okay.
topic of discussion. how
So go
how
ahead.
important is communication? Because I found when we were planning our wedding, thankfully we had you as the wedding planner, and it really helped in the communication piece, because there's so many things that get lost in translation. As you're budgeting and planning, things change. And like I think Ashley, I don't remember the name, La Vista Events mentioned,
Yeah, have to.
so
Yeah.
many variables. Like, today it's $4,000 for this, and then tomorrow something you have to add something because this can't work or that can't, So how important is the communication piece, especially between the couple? Because I've known some couples to break up in the wedding planning process. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh
if
yeah.
if if, if people aren't careful, and again, it's one of those things. I always say if you can't, if you there's some skills you build during the wedding planning process that will actually help you inside the marriage.
Be married,
One of
yeah.
them is communication. You know, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, communication, just like you said, it's really important between yourself and your planner if you do hire a planner, and between the both of you as well, the couple,
Mhm.
because you don't want this process to be a stressful process.
Exactly.
People, it's been known that of people, we've known of people who, break up during the process just because it became too stressful for the
Unnecessarily
couple.
so.
And, oh, sorry, I was just,
Yeah, the comment is
uh,
pretty funny.
you see, yeah, so yeah, that's true. Sometimes with budgets, it's tricky.
Mm,
It's just tricky. So like I was saying, communication is really,
yeah.
really important. It's good to, just be you, like I always say. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, I know we started off saying thinking we're going to do it this way, but just looking at our finances,
Mm,
um, maybe we can modify things a lot. And that's one of the advantages of having a planner, because um, they will help you modify things, help you,
yes. Yes.
still get a great wedding. It might not be what your original plan was, but it will
Mhm.
still look great, or it will
Yeah.
still feel great, it will
Yes.
still feel great. So at the end of the day, just make sure that you're having those conversations. You're
Yeah.
talking about it. You're bouncing
Mhm.
off the ideas back and forth, and it
Yeah.
doesn't become something that overwhelms you and anxiety sets in, and you think, oh my
Yeah.
God, oh my God, oh my God, and then it's
Yeah.
all.
I really like this comment. She says, I had a couple tell me recently that their vision is flexible, but their budget is not. I thought that was very respectful. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
everybody that follows Fix It Finance, if you're a young couple here, this should be your take. My vision is flexible, my budget is not. Because what will happen is you will see, I don't know, there were some shows way back that I used to watch when I was younger, like weddings and whatnot, and like their budget starts out at like 50 grand. By the time they are done, they are like at 70, almost 100, because it just piles on. And especially when vendors hear weddings and whatnot, for some reason things just get more expensive. So please, if you're on here, and the reason why we are taking the time to go through budgeting and planning for your wedding and whatnot is so that the foundation you're starting on, you're not starting in the red, you're not starting with unnecessary stress. Because I remember one of the people who spoke to to Kenny and I before we got married. He was like, whatever it is you guys decide to do, just giving us general advice. One of a pastor friend of ours, and he was like, he had someone who did a wedding that cost, what, I think, I don't know how much in dollars, but let's just say the wedding cost $10,000, and then the week after the wedding needed to borrow, $100 to do grocery shopping. That is not responsible.
No,
People, that's just not responsible. You
no.
cannot plan a wedding of 10,000 and then the following week need $100 to go do grocery shopping. So please,
Mhm.
that's the whole point of why we're talking. Mo started with, she said, don't do more than you can. Like, you're not trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're not trying to impress. No offense. Like there's this saying that says, "Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." If I'm your friend and I love you, even if you do a wedding in a barn, I will be there and I will have just as much fun because I love you. If all you give me a burger, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, don't don't do too much because you're trying to impress. And there tends to be that, I guess, narrative when it comes to African weddings, for sure. So just to save those of you that are coming down the pipeline, into the wedding pipeline, just like Mo said from the very beginning, do not do more than your capacity can handle. Simple.
Yeah.
If all you can
Yeah.
afford is a $500 wedding, you are still married, whether or not you have a party. The biggest thing is that paper, that certificate that says you're married. Everything else outside that is just a celebration to a large extent. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying don't have a wedding. That's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is let's be responsible.
Yeah.
financially speaking. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Start early. Make sure that, you you are you're on the same page as to
Mm-mm.
what you want to achieve,
Exactly.
what your
Mm-mm.
goal is. Make sure that you're not going into debt.
Yes.
I will always advise hire a wedding planner. Either you
Yes.
hire a wedding
Definitely.
planner for the full wedding or partially, or just for the last month of the wedding to help you make things, happen,
Mm.
make things, to ensure that what you've planned is, is what you have planned. They help you make sure that things work out the way you wanted it to work out,
Mm-hmm.
but you hire a planner. And the
Mm-hmm.
advantage of hiring a planner full time is the fact that they can help you with managing that budget. And
Mm.
glad that we're having this conversation. Fikayo can testify. Like we made sure that they didn't exceed their budget.
At
This
all.
is budget and we don't want to exceed this budget. And
Yes.
so a planner will help you keep on track with
Yes.
that. So that's
Yes.
one of the advantages. Of
Yes.
course, some people are really organized. They also can plan whatever, plan and coordinate things by themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, towards the end, the last month of your engagement, enjoy it. The month before your wedding, enjoy it. Take off all
Mm.
of that stress. Hire somebody to take it up from then
Mm.
on, to give you
Yeah.
that relief for that period of time.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
yeah.
Okay. So there's just one final comment here from Dee's Kitchen. She says, "Don't turn your wedding into a competition. It's your day. Do what makes you both happy." Exactly. Exactly. Do what makes you both happy.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep
Do
it
you?
simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
do
Do
you. You're
you?
not
Do
trying to
you?
impress anybody.
No,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
Do
So I guess
you? Do you?
just because of time, I think we have three
Okay.
minutes left. So
Oh, okay. Awesome.
any final thoughts? Oh, by the way, more events might have a discount for those of you that are listening, you know, that are on here. She might have a little something for y'all. So make sure you go
You
check
know.
out her page, More Events YYC. She's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, and for all your post-COVID planning at least, because respectfully, it looks like we maybe well, are we ever going to get back to normal? Probably not. But that's another story for another day. So any final thoughts?
I think what final thoughts, what I just want to say is, just make sure that you have those conversations. Make
Mm,
sure that you can decide on what you want to do. Um don't don't try to do what every other person is
mm,
doing. Do
mm-hmm,
you? Your
mm.
wedding, it doesn't need to be the same as the next person's wedding.
Yes,
Let your wedding be a reflection
of
of
you.
of
Mm,
both of
mm.
you. Let it be a reflection of you. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we don't want you to go into debt because you are getting married. You know,
Yes. Yes.
it's not the best way to start a
Start.
marriage.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not the best way to start a marriage. So I
Mm,
think that would be, just do you. And if you have, for whatever reason, you're not sure how you want to navigate this, you just need somebody to talk to, shoot me a DM, send me a
yes.
DM and, I can have a quick chat with you. If you have questions that, you're just not sure how to navigate it all, just send me a DM. I'm a pretty
Mm,
open book. The
yeah.
people that know me know that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty open book. And just like Fikayo was saying, should you, if you got engaged or you're getting engaged this season and you're thinking of hiring a planner, you can definitely check me out as well. And if you decide to go with my services and you heard of me from this platform, Fix It Finance, just mention Fix It Finance, and I will honor that with a 10% discount. I typically don't do discount, but I will give a 10% discount on whatever service you eventually decide to go for.
Mm,
If you mention that you heard of this, you heard about me, you considered my service just because watched this life or you saw this life after the life, and
Thank
it was
you.
fictive finance.
Awesome. Thank you so,
Yeah.
so, so much. We have less than a minute left. It's gonna go off soon.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you all
Okay.
so much for
Thank you,
joining. This
everyone.
was this
Thanks
was
for
nice.
joining.
Yeah. Thank you so much. More events. We really appreciate it. Follow more
Oh,
events.
thank you.
MOEVENTSYYC. I still know how to spell on Instagram. And we'll go from there. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for joining. Have a great, great Saturday. Bye
Thank
guys.
you guys for coming on.
Bye.
Bye.